2019. This is a Prescott City Council voting session. Sorry we're running a couple minutes late. Our study session earlier went a little bit long. Mayor Pro Tem, what do you have for announcements?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to inform the public about free brush drop-off during the month of June. It starts this Saturday on June 1. If you have some brush from getting your place fire-wise, we'd love to have it. So bring it on over. It's free. Simply have to bring proof of city of residency in the city of Prescott. Do not place trash in the brush debris and cover all of your loads. This happens every Friday and Saturday through the month of June, and it starts on Saturday, June 1. So my car's loaded, and I hope you'll get yours loaded as well. Thank you, Mayor.
You want to come load my car as well?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I'm good.
I want to thank all of you who might have been in attendance of the Memorial Day observance at the Citizens Cemetery yesterday. Despite the weather, we had a very good crowd at the Citizens Cemetery, and it was good to do that yesterday, so I appreciate those of you that were there. We will have an invocation today by Pastor Terrence Paget with Unity Church of Prescott, and then the pledge led by Councilman Blair.
Please join me in prayer. Dear gracious God, we thank you for your blessing upon this meeting. We affirm your presence and guidance as we go about this most important work. May we work together to ensure a prosperous and harmonious future for our beautiful city. Enlighten us with divine wisdom and ideas. Open our hearts and minds as we work together in harmony. We affirm this meeting today is moving the city of Prescott toward becoming a nationwide example of prosperity, excellent education, and respecters of all people. And we say thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. So please call roll.
Mayor Mangarelli,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Orr,
Here.
Councilman Blair,
Yes.
Councilman Good,
Here.
Councilman Lamerson, here. Councilwoman Scholl,
Here.
Councilman Sischka.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you. Proclamations, please.
Item A is proclaiming the city of Prescott as a Purple Heart City.
You know, it's a particular pride to be able to read this proclamation. Purple Heart City. Whereas the residents of Prescott have great admiration and utmost gratitude for the men and women who selflessly serve our country in the United States Armed Forces. And whereas the Purple Heart Medal is awarded to those military members who are wounded or killed in combat in recognition of their bravery and service to our nation. Whereas the city of Prescott recognizes and honors the sacrifice of our nation's military who were wounded or killed while protecting the freedom and liberty we enjoy. And whereas Arizona became a Purple Heart state on May 9th, 2016, with all 15 counties and many Arizona cities proclaiming their support of Purple Heart recipients and the Military Order of Purple Heart, which these gentlemen represent. Now, therefore, Greg L. Mangarelli, Mayor of the City of Prescott, does hereby proclaim that the City of Prescott is established as a Purple Heart City, proudly joining those already established in Arizona by forever remembering and honoring the sacrifices made by these selfless patriots. It's a real pleasure and an honor. Thanks again. Thanks.
We also have
plaque we'd like to present to the city in recognition of becoming a Purple Heart City. And if I may, I'll read this. Sure. The Military Order of the Purple Heart Special Recognition Award is bestowed with pride to the city of Prescott, Arizona, for your dedication and support honoring American combat wounded veterans becoming a Purple Heart City. Presented by the Patriot members of Chapter 608, the Department of Arizona Military Order of the Purple Heart. Sir, it's an honor to present you with this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, right. You get it? You couldn't go without giving you a parking sign.
Well, I'd love to be able to use this myself, but my combat experience was fortunate enough that the bullets never hit me. Hit a lot of my buddies, though. And I want to recognize Gary Sheldon, who's a fellow Prescott Post 6 American Legionnaire, who's also a Purple Heart recipient. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Snacks? Oh, that's nice.
The next proclamation is Foster Care Awareness Month.
So if you're with a foster care or child agency, come on up. I get to read this one because I have the largest family on the council, so I think. This is Foster Care Month. We are at the tail end of the month. The governor did do a proclamation earlier this month, so I'm very proud of our city to be able to do this proclamation today. It's very important work that these people do. And I think before I do the proclamation, read the proclamation, if one person from each agency could introduce yourself and the agency you're with, that'd be great.
Becky Ruffner, we're with Prevent Child Abuse Arizona.
Shelley Yutsky with Christian Family Care.
John Lang with Catholic Charities.
Well, thank you all for being here today. This is for Foster Care Awareness Month. Whereas there are more than 18,000 children in the Arizona State foster care system. Whereas children come into foster care have a right to live in a safe, nurturing, and supportive family atmosphere. And whereas more than 3,000 Arizona children in foster care are awaiting a new forever family. Whereas in order to launch young people into successful adulthood, there is a particular need for foster homes for teens ages 13 to 18. And whereas all young people in foster care need a meaningful connection to a caring adult who becomes a supportive and lasting presence in their lives. And whereas the residents of Prescott are known for their compassion and have a long-standing tradition of opening their hearts and homes to children and youth in need of a stable and caring atmosphere, and whereas we offer gratitude and thanks to all who serve Arizona's youth as foster, adoptive, and kinship parents, and all other individuals who are dedicated to making a difference for children in need, now therefore I, Greg L. Mingarelli, Mayor of the City of Prescott, do hereby proclaim May 2019 as Foster Care Awareness Month. I will say on this note, you hear numbers of 18,000 children in foster care. We're very good at hiding our orphans in Arizona because you don't really see that. You don't really grasp that we have that many children who are orphans in foster care, and that there are 3,000 children waiting to be adopted. They're ready to be adopted today. And I believe our faith community could really take care of this whole need very easily. And it is my hope and my desire that with you all's help, we can fix this problem in our state. And so I appreciate the work that you all do. Would anyone have some comments to add? Well, thank you so much for being here. Let's move on to presentations, please.
Recognizing the City of Prescott's third Citizens Academy class.
There are lots of graduations going on throughout the city. We have our own today. Could we please have our third Citizens Academy class step forward? How are you? Good. Good. This is amazing. So glad you're all here. So this is our third class, and I will tell you these are our best ambassadors for the city of Prescott. They know so much about the city since they've gone through the academy. And I have asked, before we hand these out, I've asked Jeff Hubley to please come and tell her a little bit her reflections about this academy.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Hubley, and I'm graduating from the most recent Citizens Academy class. I was expecting it to be very informative, plus free dinner every Thursday night. So count me in. I was not expecting it to be so insightful, however. I've lived in Prescott for 7 years now, and I'm from Texas, not California. I knew right away that Prescott was very special. I wasn't sure why, but I loved it immediately. Through the Citizens Academy, I learned that not only are the employees of the various city departments amazing, but volunteers working side by side with the city bring a very special ownership, making Prescott truly everyone's hometown. So thank you, City of Prescott, for offering this wonderful class, and please continue working hand in hand with all of our fabulous volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And in addition to recognizing all of our directors that go to these evening classes, and they present these evening classes 2.5 hours every Thursday night for 8 weeks, I want to recognize Tyler Goodman, who is the person that puts this all together. And he is amazing. We're very proud of what we're doing. So if you'll please step forward when I call your name. Cindy Brown. Here I am. Here you go, Cindy. Congratulations. Thank you. Jeff Hubley. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Jade Riley. I didn't see Jade. I wondered. Okay. Sandra Smith. Here you go, Sandy. Sally Lorette. I saw Sally behind me. How are you? Good to see you. Sandy Studley. Stutley. Studi. Sorry. You and I are only how many committees together? Sorry, Sandy. James Wallace. Thank you, James. Marta Wallace. Thank you, Marta. Congratulations. Myrna Benson. Myrna. Nanette Kopnick. Thank you. Thank you. Bill Kopnick. Thank you, Bill. Lisa Stevens. Lisa is also one of our ambassadors. Mel Jacobs.
Thank you.
As is Nanette. Rochelle Jacobs. Thank you. Thank you. Grant Quesada. Thank you. Go, Grant. Jesse Perk. Jesse. Janie Evans. And Jim. There we go.
Thank you.
And I bet I can pick out Jim.
Yep.
Jim Evans. Congratulations to you all. Thank you for taking the academy, and tell your friends about it. Have we started registering for our new one?
Unofficially, but it's already more than halfway full.
Great. So people can go online to our website at the City of Prescott and sign up for the new class. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you all for investing the time to do that. We're going to move on to consent agenda. Would any member of the council like to pull anything from consent?
Mayor, I'd like to pull item 8B, please.
Okay, item B. Anything else, anybody? Okay, look for a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items 8A through 8F, excluding 8B.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Please vote. Blair, you set up there?
I'm confused.
Gotta take the sign off. All right, I think we're set.
Passes 7-0.
Okay, let's look at item 8B, Councilman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just heard a couple of comments from the public regarding this item, and I thought it was appropriate that we clarify. Our support for the rodeo has been a consistent $20,000 support budget item for 20 years. And when you, in fact, I even looked this up on the U.S. inflation calculator website to indicate what inflation would do to a $20,000 allocation 20 years ago. And inflation would indicate it would be $30,678 today. So this is just almost a typical inflation adjustment. So they're getting an equivalent amount of support from the city for what we're known as the oldest rodeo in the United States. And it's
World, actually.
World. Thank you for that correction, please. And we're seeing increasing attendance every year. So this item is being supported through our bed tax. And I just think it's important that we clarify that it's highly valuable and very well generating tax dollars to support this increased allocation. So I'd like to move that we approve consent agenda item 8B.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Councilman Blair?
If I remember correctly, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe our gift, so to speak, of bed tax before the downturn of the economy in 2006 was $50,000 to the rodeo. And then because of the downturn of the bed tax, we had to modify it to $20,000. And I agree with Phil. You know, it's been proven day in and day out, cost-benefit analysis, that the rodeo drives bed tax in this community for about 10 days to 2 weeks in the community. And I believe it's worth every cent of the $30,000.
Oh, well, it does more than that. It not only drives bed tax, it drives sales tax, it drives everything. I mean, you fill the bars, you fill the hotels, etc. So I don't have any problem with doing what we're doing, but I do think it's important for us to acknowledge not only what do we call these? It's a signature event, but it's also a major tax generator throughout the summer in the city of Prescott.
Right.
So I really think it's important for us to invest in this particular venue.
Thank you for the motion, Phil.
Good comments. Any other discussion? Appreciate you pulling this and making note of that, Councilman Good. Very, very well said. We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right. Thank you for that. Let's move on to liquor license agenda.
Mayor and Council, this is a public hearing and consideration for a new liquor license application for a Series 12 restaurant liquor license from Kaneshiro Homeland. Applicant for Sushi Man, located at 1355 Iron Springs Road. The application has been determined to be in compliance with city requirements, and the application fee has been paid, and it has been posted at the site for the required 20 days. I'm not sure if the applicant is here.
Yeah, he is.
Yay.
You can come on up if you'd like to say a few words. I have had your sushi out there, and it was very good. It was very good. Well, thank you for investing in Prescott and doing business here in the city.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for,
All right. Yep. Let's do a motion here.
Mayor, move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
Mayor, move to approve recommendation for liquor license for application number 59844 for a new Series 12 restaurant liquor license for Sushi Man located 1355 Iron Springs Road.
Second.
Motion second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right. You made it. You're welcome. All right, let's move on to consent ordinances.
Adopt ordinance 2019-1673, authorizing the acceptance of Yavapai County-owned portions of Division Street and authorizing the mayor and staff to execute any and all documents to effectuate said acceptance of real property.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is kind of an interesting issue here. When I served on the Central Yavapai Hospital District Board of Directors, Division Street was in horrible shape. The board was considering the cost of repairing that road, and I asked them, before we do that, let's look in to make sure the district actually owns this road. So we found out that the district was given an option to acquire this section of Division Street, but never exercised it. So it actually still belonged to the county. So we went back to the county and said, you got to fix this road. It's in horrible shape, which they did. So now we are acquiring this section of Division Street, and it's in very good condition. So very good for the city now to acquire a nicely repaired section of Division Street.
We'll send a thank you to the county. Look for a motion.
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 2019-1673.
Second.
Have a motion and second, please vote.
Passes 7-0.
All right, let's move on to item 11A, please.
Approval of city contract with Central Square Technologies.
Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon, Mayor Migarelli, Mayor Pro Tem Orr. I'm Nate Keegan, IT Director for the City of Prescott. By your leave, I'd like to go through a couple slides here, and then Chelsea Walton and Brent Stotler would like to talk to you about this as well. So what you see in front of you here is a slide which, depending on the day of the week, your mood, you could refer to as the cycle of pain, software jail. It's a traditional model a lot of organizations run into where you find promise. The promise is things will be amazing. It'll be kittens, it'll be rainbows. Everything will be wonderful if you just do this. Our current building permit software, in fact, that is their tagline, make .com technology available to government. That sounds great. The reality isn't always the same, though, and you can see there that, as someone said, if this software works, it's an unusual day, it's suspicious. And then what tends to happen is people hate software, and then it's money, and the cycle continues. It's not good, it's not appropriate. It's not something that's good for the business. It's not something that's good for our end customer in the city. So the question is, that's great, but what are we going to do about all that? And really the bigger question is, why is software so difficult? Why do people hate software? Why does this happen? What you see up there is I can see that rocket ship. That's the goal. Everybody can see the rocket ship. What I can't see is anything but a bunch of dots. And I'm colorblind. And the idea there is software is complicated inherently. It's abstract. It requires lots of people. And what you run into is what one person might see. City manager might see it. I might not see it in IT. IT might see it, but the vendor may not see it. So really what you need is a collaborative group. And if that doesn't happen, then you run into problems. This is what you want. This is the best case scenario. You have a business partner who's engaged, who understands your needs, can actually deliver product. You have business units that have needs, those needs are met. And then you have IT as kind of the technical muscle, the translator sometimes in between everything to make it go. And that represents the rocket. So what that brings me to is we believe, and I say we in the royal sense here, it's not just IT, because it can't work that way. It has to be IT, business, everybody. Is that Central Square is a way for us to escape software jail, and to provide things that we, the city of Prescott, would like to provide, need to provide, and essentially we're promised to be provided by our current vendor. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to Chelsea and Bryn to give you some more details on the business side of what that actually means.
Good afternoon again, Mayor and Council. Bryn Stotler, Director of Community Development. I wasn't here during the December 2017 implementation of the Acela software program, which is the building permit and other use software that we currently use. But what I have witnessed is the difficulties that staff encounters on almost a daily basis to get through our basic business without outages, inability to accept payments. The outages actually render us helpless to issue a building permit. So the very thing that we are tasked with doing cannot happen when we are in a state of outage with the current software system. I've also spent hours in meetings where we attempted to configure Acela to address our basic needs. We're over a year and a half into this process post-implementation. I understand there's a big lead up to that too that has its own version of pain attached to it, the data migration from other software systems to get into Acela to be able to utilize it properly. The meetings that I've attended where we've attempted to configure this software to address our basic business needs, I came away from thinking, why are we writing software for this company? And that's really what it amounted to. That coupled with the fact that consultants had to be procured throughout not only you might expect that through the implementation process, but to just get us to the point where we could work on a daily basis with the software acting in alignment with our business practices has been nothing short of excruciating. We've received limited, if any, support from Acela. We continue to have to budget tens of thousands of dollars on the public works side and on the community development side to engage consultants to continue to refine the software to be something that is usable for our staff. I actually worked at the county during their software shopping experience, and they fronted several $100,000 toward the Acela implementation of their own. At some point, their IT department, similar to our IT department, did a base analysis of the long-term viability of Acela, and they backed up and walked away from it and went in a completely different direction. So this is not the only jurisdiction to have had these issues or anticipated these issues. And I really believe that on its face, we have an opportunity here to move towards something that will actually function. And it's also something that our staff is inherently familiar with, as we used not Central Squares at the time, but the same program for a period of 17 years and used it very successfully. Nate can go into some of the additional details if needed about why we had to walk away from Track It, which was the program that we had for all those years, and move toward Acela. But the bottom line is that through the vision of our city manager, Michael Lamar, in seeing the difficulties that we were having in just the daily inability to conduct business, he suggested that we look at other options. Nate did a lot of the homework, and then smartly, Michael sent us on a field trip with several of our end users from both Public Works and Community Development staff, myself, Chelsea as the Development Services Facilitator, and some of our inspectors to literally go and visit communities where this software has been implemented and where it's being successfully utilized. And there were some astounding findings from that trip. Westminster, Colorado shared with us that following full implementation, 90% of their building permits are actually applied for online. This was a finish line that we were pointed towards with Acela. and continued to budget funding in order to get that implementation squared away, but we were literally still at this point probably 2 years away from being able to accept building permit applications online. This is how Central Square's product rolls right out of the box. So we would have great advantages in that. Westminster also shared with us that they, I don't want to say enjoyed, but they experienced a 60% reduction in foot traffic to their counter as a result of having the ability for online processing. So we're talking about a great opportunity to conserve resources as well. All of the plan review associated with this program occurs online in a companion product called Bluebeam. And all of the exchange of those plan review comments and review comments goes back and forth to the customer electronically. Again, a great advantage for us in terms of not only the effective use of time for staff, but the physical ability of us to conduct our business without having a lot of our space consumed by simply storage of plan sets. One of the other compelling features that I thought really would make a difference for us in the long term is that the Central Square product is Droid capable. Right now, the application that we're using with Acela is Apple only, and the application is very problematic. The mobile users experience very routine disruptions in their work product just due to the lack of integrity of the app itself. The ability to move to a Droid product gives us the ability to replace and or implement new mobile devices much more cheaply over the long haul. And I think that that would be a great benefit. I'm going to invite Chelsea to come up here and talk a little bit more specifically about end user experiences, but I want to thank Council for considering this change. I know that you don't enter into these type of fiscal decisions lightly, and we as a department just want the opportunity to successfully conduct business using something that has the proper support network. Everything that I've seen from the 2 jurisdictions that we visited, as well as the in-depth analysis that Nate has undertaken, indicates to me that this product would really revolutionize the way that we're able to do things at community development and public works. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. So at first, when the idea of Central Square came before us and Michael met with myself as well as Bryn and Nate and other members of Public Works and Community Development, we got the demo scheduled. Central Square came in and gave a great pony show. Staff was honestly skeptical. They felt that a lot of the information presented was very similar to the promises that Acela provided. So when Michael had the idea of taking a field trip to do a boots on the ground reference check, staff was eager to do that, and they went in with eyes wide open. So what we found when we got there was a software product that operated in the way that it was demonstrated to us at the time that they came and presented. So immediately out of the gate, it was something that staff felt they could really use and operate and function and really serve the community well with. We saw that the implementation process had direct support, as Bryn mentioned, direct support, not through a third party, but Central Square themselves had they had members of their team that were called upon for 4 different contacts. There was an assigned project manager who helped with every aspect of the transition. They had a data conversion specialist that worked with the IT department. They had a trainer that was specifically tasked with coming to the particular place to conduct staff training, and then a GIS specialist that worked with their mapping coordinator. The long-term benefits from the permitting staff perspective is, I'm just going to give some examples to give you an idea. But permit intake right now, just simply receiving a set of plans over the counter will take a permit technician about 20 minutes to just simply log it in the system. With the Track It software, it takes 5 to 10 minutes. The Bluebeam product, that would be a companion software that Central Square provides with the overall package, provides a way of reviewing plans where the individual reviewers can stamp their comments, can draw on the electronic set, and then can make their notes directly on the PDF and transmit that back to the applicant. Whereas right now, Acela, you have to basically do dual entry. You're reviewing the plans, you're taking physical notes, you're taking those physical notes back to the computer, and then you're logging them into a very clunky, very time-consuming process. It's multi-steps and it's ridiculous. With that, the Bluebeam product is widely used by industry partners that do plan review. So I know we've discussed outsourcing internally in the future, and this will make outsourcing a lot easier. Central Square has a way of logging in through the internet with IT support and what they need to do on their end. Third-party outsource that we utilize on high-volume seasons would be easily able to log in, do their own review right there, and through the Bluebeam and through Central Square be able to conduct their business as well efficiently. The, reviewers can set up alerts and internal notifications. Right now, staff has to physically run a report every time they need to see what's due for their own task for the day. Whereas Central Square offers a dashboard where you can easily see, and you can set up email notifications or alerts if you need to. The only equipment we saw necessary, because at first when you think of electronic plan review, you're thinking, expensive equipment, lots of new devices that are expensive, but really the municipalities we visited only had large monitors, large computer screens essentially set up at workstations, which made the workstation actually smaller because you wouldn't need as much space for a plan table. You'd just set up a large TV screen and be able to do your review like that. Inspectors we had Krista Winchester, who's here today. She does a myriad of things for the building department. She does plan review, she's done permit technician, she's done inspection for building. Her and Jerry Greenfield, who's a public works inspector, sat with an inspector from Arvada. I have to say that carefully because I mess it up. But Arvada, Colorado, an inspector sat with them and showed them how it works in the field. And it works exactly how they say it is going to work. And one of the main complaints from inspectors right now is when you lose connectivity with Acela in the field, all your work goes away. Any inspection notes, anything that you've been working on in the field, gone. You have to redo it, and that takes time and frustration, obviously. With Central Square, you upload your information, you put your information into the system. If you lose connectivity, it stores the data you've put in, and once you gain connectivity, it automatically sends it out. So there's a lot of capabilities for inspectors in addition to the notes not being lost. They have much more information available to them. It's more, they have inspection history, inspection notes. All the data that you'd see on your PC basically is what they can see in the field. Inspections can be auto-assigned based on location, and inspections can be added or canceled from the field. So there's a lot of functionality for inspectors. In addition to that, GIS mapping feature actually works. It's a bonus. Better reporting options. You can essentially build your own reports. And from the customer perspective, you can complete your own permit application online. I believe there's mobile there's an app where you can enter the information if you have a smartphone device, but you can do that online instead of coming to City Hall. You can pay for and receive your building permit completely online. You can schedule inspections without having to go through the IVR call-in system, which is a little bit clunky as well. And there is also a future opportunity to move away from the IVR system entirely and have inspections solely scheduled online, which would eliminate a contract that the city currently has with Selectron. So in addition to that, you have real-time permit status updates available, which is probably the reason the 60% reduction in foot traffic was experienced by Westminster. Is you don't have to come in. You don't have to get into your car, drive down to City Hall to see where your permit is, or try to get someone on the phone. You just log into your account and you see who's reviewed it. You see where it is in the status. If it's ready to pick up, all of that's available at your fingertips. When asked at wrap-up to name a few of the best results moving to Central Square, because Westminster was with Acela for, I think, 15 years-ish, and they moved to Central Square in 2015. We asked them, what was name some of the best things you experienced from Central Square. Westminster literally said that they receive far less complaints from developers. They can see everything online. So with that, that's the staff perspective, and I'm going to turn it back over to Nate to wrap us up. Thank you.
So believe it or not, I spend a lot of time thinking about software and technology. I think that when you get down to it, software is a tool, no more, no less. The effectiveness of our current tool, and I alluded to this in the council memo, is just like if I gave each of you a set of popsicle sticks and asked you to dig a trench across Cortez Street. It's just ridiculous. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work in a month. It's not gonna work in 6 months. It's not gonna work in 2 years. The bottom line is that Central Square is a fairly big company. Right now, I believe they have a metric of 3 out of 4 people in North America live in a jurisdiction where there's Central Square software. Not their first rodeo. We use them on the public safety side currently in the PRCC environment. What I think it comes down to is if you look at a 5-year window, we're about halfway through the Acela 5-year window. That software is projected to end up at $1.5 million for failures, promises, not online, not a lot of .gov anything. If you take the same 5-year window, Central Square is about half that cost. Day one, hour one, online this, electronic that, things that the current vendor promises, Central Square delivers. How do we know that? We've seen it. We've asked some hard questions. And with that, it comes back to I'm willing to take questions, comments. Let us have it.
Very good. Thanks, Nate. I think the most important thing you guys have done is just visit places that use Central Square and talk to not necessarily just supervisors, but those folks that are actually working in it every day. I think it was brilliant to do that. The good news here is reading your memo. I think it was the first time I've laughed out loud while going through my council agenda. And you've got a great fallback with comedic writing. So if this doesn't go well, you've got a good second career option. So I'm not implying anything, but just, it's a good backup. Michael, did you have something?
Well, Mayor, a couple things. I mean, this is a ton of money. You don't like basically stopping the race and saying enough, but sometimes you have to do that. I mean, in the South we used to say, you could either fish or cut bait, right? We're cutting bait. You got to make a determination, and Jim said it to me the other day. Sometimes when you're in business, and this is a business, we made a decision that didn't work, and you got to go a different direction, and it's not cheap. When you decide to go a different direction, you got to do your due diligence. And I can tell you this too. Going forward, when we have large software implementations or software changeovers, we're going to go visit. And maybe people don't see the value of that, but you really need to see the boots on the ground implementation in other jurisdictions. So this is the right thing to do. I don't think you can wait much longer because you're just throwing good money after bad.
Okay, let's go to Councilman Good.
Yes, city manager, I've been involved in situations where you make significant investments and realize that you've made an error, and the inclination is to try to continue on hoping that it's going to get better, and at some point you realize this isn't going to work, and you've got to cut your losses and go somewhere else. So I certainly see this as falling into that category. When I was first reading the background, I was asking myself, well, why wasn't Acela thoroughly vetted, and the due diligence that you apparently have done here apparently wasn't done there?
I have plausible deniability because I wasn't here for that decision. So there's always that. I like to play that card.
Ren, am I correct in assuming that we have had experience with Trackit, and then we went to Acela, and now we're going back to it?
That's correct, Councilman. Trackit was our permitting software for some 17 years. Nate can speak more to the specifics of the movement away from Trackit. It was basically the company, Central Square, had not purchased that software program, nor had they expanded on its capabilities. We lost the ability.
Just Trackit at the time?
I'm sorry?
You're saying that Central Square had not purchased Trackit?
That's correct.
Yeah, I can give a little, and so can Nate. My understanding from Nate and everybody that was involved is Trackit was functionally successful for us.
It's limited capacity.
Yes. And in the world of software, as you're well aware, people get engulfed and bought out and all the time. Trackit basically disappeared from the face of the earth from a support perspective. So Trackit going forward at the time that we did it, what was it, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't really practical. Is that fair, Nate? It was sort of just out in space, not doing anything, and Acela at the time seemed to be a good alternative. What ended up happening is Trackit got bought out by Central Square, and they had a good software program that now has become better. But at the time the decision was made, Trackit standalone wasn't really an option. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And to be fair to Acela, they sold a good bill of goods to everybody, and it wasn't just us. Yuma County, Shasta County, California, City Casa Grande, a whole bunch of folks in Colorado, including City of Denver. What you're seeing now are a lot of those people are moving off Acela post-haste.
City of Denver being one of those.
Yes, that's my understanding, yes.
My other question is, we're accessing Yuma County's contract, or are we going to put together our own contract?
It's a RFP that Yuma County conducted, and we are piggybacking on their RFP.
So they haven't signed a contract with them yet?
They signed in February of 2019.
Yeah, my concern is Vista Equity Partners, in partnership with Bain Capital, are private equity, venture capital related companies that generally like to put a lot of investment into companies like this with a particular target. It looks like their target is to vastly expand their public governmental software offerings, and that's probably why Trackit is being added to these additional software companies or programs or systems to be able to provide a kind of a one-stop solution for government. However, usually VCs like to exit their investment in 3 to 5 years, either through initial public offering publicly or selling it off to somebody else. So if we're making a pretty significant investment in our systems, I'd like to make sure that we have a sufficient contract coverage to make sure that we get this implemented, we get it operating, so we don't end up with a new owner and then have problems down the road. So that would be my initial concern, to make sure the city of Prescott is properly contractually protected.
Central Square is committed to us being online by the end of the year, end of 2019, not budget year, calendar year 2019. So 6-month implementation, we will be live.
Thank you.
Councilman Blair?
My only question or concern would be with the company that we're leaving, is there any buyout monies that we're going to have to pay, or can we sue them for the lack of productivity?
That would be not my area of expertise, so defer to Mr. Palladini. Acela is essentially year to year as an organization. I spoke in December of this year with the vice president of Acela, and it was not a friendly conversation. We were polite, but it was very firm that your software is essentially broken. What are you going to do about it? And what we got was a bunch of promises and then nothing, which is why you're seeing large organizations like Yuma County, City of Denver, I believe Chattanooga, Tennessee, all Acela people are leaving.
What were we paying a year for that?
$172,000
Have
right
we
now.
made that payment to them this year?
Not until October, November is the next one.
Okay, then I suggest we don't pay it. I mean, is there any way to recoup?
I think we could look at it. I mean,
why not? I mean, if they have broken their promise, i.e. their contract with the city of Prescott, it would seem like there would be some liquidated damages they could pay us. Mr. Palladini, he's asleep.
No, I'm paying attention, although you're easy to sleep to. But anyway, no, I guess a couple points. The Yuma purchasing is done for pricing purposes. In other words, we're sort of buying in bulk, kind of like we do with other products we buy on these collaborative purchasing. They actually get a better pricing. And then as far as the contract itself, there's not a single, at least in my experience doing this for years, we've never seen a software company agree to anything but its own contract. Their contracts are effectively take it or leave it for the most part. And we have reviewed this contract, and it's pretty standard form in terms of software type contracts. Actually, this one's a little unusual because they agree that jurisdiction would be in Arizona. Most always force it to be in Delaware or some other place. This one does have an arbitration procedure. And as far as Acela and lawsuits, we have not had that discussion with management or with IT to determine whether or not it's a breach of contract or breach of warranty or simply just not a very good product. Unlike automobiles, there really isn't a lemon law for software. So we haven't had that discussion. We could look into it.
That's all I'm asking.
We could look into it. Yeah.
But to answer Councilman Blair's question, there's no clause in there where we owe them anything to get, cancel or anything like that. He's just looking to see if there's any opportunity for breach. Yeah.
We can look into that and whether there's, if it's a year-to-year contract, it's a year-to-year contract, and we'll see about whether we can reduce the final payment if we haven't made it for the year.
He's on retainer. We need to make him work.
Councilman Lamerson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have similar concerns to what Councilman Good had. I have similar concerns to what Councilman Blair has. Bottom line is, through you, Mr. Manager, I pay on behalf of the taxpayers of the city, you guys, to give us some advice. And, sometimes, you make a bad business decision. Acela was a bad business decision that is not compatible with where we want to be today. So from that perspective, I appreciate the hard work you guys have done with identifying the waste of money that we don't want to continue. So that's the best I can offer at this point. I don't see going down the same path, You stick your finger in a cigar cutter once, and that's enough.
Yeah, let's move on.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, and I would agree with that. My question was about a refund from Acela. So Nate, you're saying in October we pay another $170,000?
Yeah, October-ish, mid-October to early November,
And that's to
170.
take us until.
That gets you one more year of use of the software. That's all it gets
So
you.
we have to pay a whole $170,000 for a year, but we're only going to be on it for until the end of the year. Is that right?
We haven't talked with Acela about our plans and or some kind of a prorated type amount or anything of that point. But we will.
Okay. I mean, why pay for a year if we're only going to have it for 3 months, right? Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments from the council? Any public comment?
No, Mayor.
All right, we'll entertain a motion at this point.
Mayor, move to approve city contract number 2019-115 with Central Square Technologies in the amount not to exceed $430,011 using Yuma County contract number MX-M753N pricing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Mayor, before we start,
I'm
there is a
sorry.
mistake in the agenda. It should
Oh.
actually be 2019-240.
So we'll amend that, Councilman Blair, city contract number 2019-240.
240.
Okay, thank you.
I have a motion and second. Please vote.
Passes 6-0.
All right. Thank you, Nate and team. Let's move on to item 11B, please.
Approval of amendments to increase the annual amount for Bennett Oil off-site fuel and bulk fuel contracts.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Mike Carr, Fleet Services. This item requests approval to amend the 3-year contract with Bennett Oil for card lock fuel services and bulk oil deliveries by $342,000 for the remainder of FY19. The funds for the current contract have been expended, and an increase is needed at this time for fuel usage and delivery. Due to fluctuation in usage and pricing, fuel is difficult to project from month to month and can depend on many variances, including project loads, additional increase in fuel costs. Particularly in this situation, we did not budget or actually project enough in the contract, the initial contract amount. We only put $600,000 toward the initial contract. Per finance, we're projecting $940,000 to finish the fiscal year for fuel. So we are currently about 2 months behind on our fuel payments just based on how we receive the bills. So the rest of this $342,000 will take us through to the end of FY19, and we will be increasing the budgeted amount going forward. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thanks for coming in, Mike. Good to see you. Questions, comments from the council?
I'm sure some of that had to do with our winter experience of having snowmobiles on the road quite a few hours.
Yeah, we had a larger bill during the month of January, February, or the months of January and February. So, but it wasn't all contributed to that. It was a lack of initial funding for that amount that led to us coming back for so much more.
Good, we can blame that on Woodfield then.
It's called Snowmageddon, Councilman, by the way. Any other questions, comments from the council? Any public comment?
No, Mayor.
Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve amendment to city contracts numbers 2018-225 and 2015-208.
Second.
We have a motion. Second, please vote.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you, Mike. All right, item 11C is a legislative update, and we have the illustrious Tyler Goodman with us to give us a final wrap-up.
I don't know if I've ever been called illustrious.
Illustrious, yeah,
Appreciate
there you
that.
go. You told me in the hallway a minute ago that the budget was passed at 1 in the morning. Is that right?
12:58 a.m. this morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
I was not there, by the way. But it's good news. Like the mayor mentioned, the budget did pass, and the effective date for all bills that don't have an emergency clause will then be August 27th of this year. So keep that in mind. But we have some good news. The hotshot funding is in the budget, $1 million a year for 7 years. Also, the terminal funding is in the budget. At first, when it was released, we were told by Representative Campbell, who did a great job for us getting this through, that there was $1 million out of the $10 million in the aviation fund designated for Prescott. Well, as of the final budget, they actually specifically named Prescott Regional Airport that we will receive at least $1 million in the next fiscal year to make it even clearer, so there's not any games on the backside of getting that funding. So that's really good news.
So we owe our Representative Campbell for sure some thanks on that. On the hotshot funding, you're telling me that this isn't going to be a year-to-year decision anymore.
It is in the base budget. The only thing we'll have to keep an eye on, and Barry said this is great job security for him, is that making sure that it is in the base budget each year. It'll automatically be there unless somebody removes it but we're just going to have to ensure that it's there each year for the next 7 years.
Fair enough.
It's easier to play defense than offense.
True.
Exactly. Also, we've talked about that Wayfair, the economic nexus decision that is in the budget. It will lead to increased revenues for cities. We're just not exactly sure how much that'll play out. But all cities did receive an additional $197,802 for infrastructure funding per the state capital's outlay budget.
That'll cover some of our fuel bill.
Yeah, so that'll be good. Also, the vacation rental bill, the governor did sign that. And we did have another bill pass affecting the primary date. So instead of, it essentially moves up our primary starting in the 2021 election, moving it up 3 weeks to the first Tuesday in August. And then finally, the highway safety fee repeal. To get that budget vote from Michelle Ugenti-Rita, they did have to phase it out, and they phased it out by $32 this next fiscal year, $32 in FY21, and then it drops to $0 in FY22. So we're going to have to, as we did before, we're going to have to find ways to keep HERF intact, most likely, as that'll come into question, I'm sure, once this drops off. But that'll be for another legislative session. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Tyler, what's the point of moving the primary date?
I don't know. There's...
I remember that it was in order to give more time after the primary to get ready for the general.
That's right.
Kind of recover,
Well,
recoup.
as you know, a lot of primaries are in the spring, March, April, May, and there's 5-6 months between a primary and a general. And Arizona's is one of the shortest in the nation between primary date and general. So they're kind of moving it back. There was a compromise because there was some talk about moving it to June, and now they're so it's first Tuesday in August. Actually, it's 2020. It affects us 2021.
Gives Marine more time.
Other questions, comments for Mr. Goodman?
So Tyler, I want to make sure that $32, will that affect I-17 at all?
No, in fact, there's specific budget money. I think it's $130 million total for I-17 over the next few fiscal years. So they're going to be starting that construction. And Barry Aarons will be here on June 11th to give a legislative recap, more of a holistic view of what happened at the session. So he'll be here at the next council meeting as well.
Good. All right. I don't think there's anything else. Thanks so much, Tyler. Appreciate it. This meeting is adjourned. No quote today, sorry.
Oh, jeez. I waited all day for that.
Yeah, you did.
Words of the